Hello out there. Hopefully you can hear me. We still have another minute or so before we got to start, but I'm just making sure that everything is working. So if you are out there, let me know that you can hear okay and everything sounds okay and everything looks okay. Hey, everybody. Hey, guys. Hey, everybody. Let me get this out of the way here. There we go. Hey, Nanette. Hey, Jeff. Hey, James. Hey, Russell. Hey, Dave. Hey, John. Hey, Greg. Hey, Sebastian. Hey, Ed. Robert. It's good to see you guys. Bill, Brian. Hopefully you can hear me okay. Let me know if you're hearing everything okay and you can see me all right. Robert says, thank goodness I will be through with school in 3 weeks. Awesome, Robert. That's awesome to hear. Yeah, on the downswing of the year. That's kind of nice. Hey, everybody. Fran, can everybody see me okay? Paul says he has a blank screen. Well, let's hope that's not the case. It should be on. Anybody seeing me yet? Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay? Hey, everybody. All right, awesome. Yeah, I don't know. We're using the same software that we normally use, but there's been an upgrade. So the system's a little bit different. So hopefully, again, always just let me know if everything's good. All right, awesome. Awesome. Sebastian, say hello to your two boys as well. That's awesome. So everybody, if you look up, there should be a sticky note up on the top that you can click on to download. I made a little PDF for you guys, okay? And I'll be sharing it on the screen as well. Hey, everybody. Hey, Kevin, first timer. How you doing, bud? But there should be a link up there that you can click on and you can download a PDF. So please take a look, see if you see that. I'll also put it in the chat down here on the bottom so it'll pop up. There we go. So you guys should be able to click on that and then download that PDF. It's not a big deal. Hey, Ed. Awesome. Cool. So it looks like everybody's getting that. So if you can grab that, we're going to start off our conversation today. I'm always getting questions on how to make your soloing sound less like a scale and more like, a solo. And, as a matter of fact, I'm working on a course now that is completely non-related to that, but I'm having a blast with it. I spent about 4 hours today working on another segment of it, mapping it out and getting stuff ready. So I'm super excited for you to hear about the new course. I don't know that I'm going to talk about it today, but another cool thing to try and keep you inspired, keep you having fun, learning some songs and playing new things. But today what we're going to be doing is we're going to start off our conversation about talking about these, what we call pentatonic variations, which are just different ways of being able to look at playing. And that's something I really want you to think about as we start talking today is please always remember that it's not about the scales that you know, it's the way that you play the scales that you know, right? So if you're going, it doesn't mean that we can't make something musical out of that because we can make something musical out of anything, okay? But when we're dealing with, hey, Carlos, when we're dealing with a scale, you have to remember what we're going to talk about today is kind of how to break down, how to approach. It doesn't matter whether you're a beginner or you've been playing guitar for years and you've been soloing, you play on stage, whatever. It doesn't make any difference. these rules will apply to everybody. Okay, you just use them to whatever capacity you can. Mark says, shoulder surgery on Wednesday on my strumming arm. Bummer, Mark. You'll get through it. You will. Believe me, getting old is not the most exciting thing on the planet, having surgeries. But, you know, we got to do what we got to do and move forward, Mark. So what I want you to think about is the first thing is we've talked about meandering. Most of you probably have heard me talk about meandering before. Meandering is when you're just moving around what I call brainlessly, and I don't mean that negatively at all. I mean, you're trying to get an automatic intuition of your fretboard. So if you're playing one position or two positions or five positions or whatever it is that you're doing, trying to get an automatic movement happening. Once you get that happening, the goal is to get in there and start making some things that sound good with phrasing, okay? So let's say, for instance, we were going to play and we wanted to play something where we're breaking things up, okay? So the first thing we do is we start thinking about how we can start and stop on different notes, and we can start and stop on different beats, okay? Okay, so what we're going to do is with this pentatonic variation, and if you have that PDF, please open it up, and if you have a guitar handy, go ahead and grab it and get yourself ready to go, and we're going to practice a little bit. John says, how's the feet? Doing better. I've only had surgery on the one foot. I had to postpone the surgery on my left foot because it's just the healing is taking too long. And I didn't want, I'm still kind of hobbling when I walk, and I didn't want to hobble on 2 feet because that would be terrible. So I'm just going to wait till the fall and get the other foot done in the fall. But the other foot is right there, doing pretty good. I can wear a shoe, which is nice. Kind of limp in it, but I can wear it. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Let's go ahead and open up that PDF. And before we start with it, okay, the first thing I want you to understand is what is different, okay? What is different about it? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you. Here we go. Giselle, it should be sticky noted in the top, but let me add it again one more time here, guys. I'll add the link again here for you. You should see it in your chat box in just a second. So it should be up there, okay? And just grab that. If you miss it for some reason, you can always scroll through the chat and grab it as well, but that's all right. Okay, so we're sharing this screen now, and what I want you to think about is what's different about it. Okay, so what we're looking at right now is what we could call the A Dorian pentatonic. And I don't want to get all into what is Dorian, because that's a whole conversation that's going to last us longer than the time we have today. But what I want you to think about here is the fact that if we just switched that note G, which is in an actual scale would be the flatted 7, okay, we're switching it to an F sharp. And so what we really want to do here is try and accentuate the sound of that F sharp. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to shut off the screen for a second here because most of you should probably have that. And I should be back. Hopefully I'm back. You can see my mug. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at that. And so let's say I was going to play a lick using the top 3 strings. So I'm trying to make something with these notes. Okay. Then what I do is I convert that G into an F sharp. And it sounds pretty cool. Now, here's what I want you to do. I'm going to give you a couple little licks out of this, and then we're going to try and use those in our playing a little bit. So let's do this. With that scale that you're looking at right now, we're going to play 7 on the 4th string, which is your A, your root, 5 on the 3rd string, and then we're going to go to 7 on the 2nd string, which is that F sharp. Okay, so just try that for just 30 seconds. Give me a second to get my notes out here. I'm still here. All right, perfect. Okay, so this is a great way. of using some notes that are really bluesy in nature. And making a really nice phrase out of it. Okay, so one thing that we have to remember, yes, I am using the PRS tonight. I love this guitar, especially when I don't have to play really fast. When I play super fast, that's usually when I'll pull out one of the Ibanez gems. But for just playing bluesy stuff, I love this guitar so much. So let's try that together. So we've got, and even cooler for me is going backwards. Sorry. Not sure if I don't know my own strength evidently. Okay, so we could be playing our normal thing, right? The cool thing about these pentatonic variations is they're not saying, you know, you can't use the normal pentatonic scale. Of course you can. It's just every once in a while you try and fall into this phrasing thing, and it's going to get even cooler as we keep going. But you fall into this phrasing thing where you purposely try and skip notes or play other notes at the same time. Now, right there, what I did was I played the 5 that I showed you, or excuse me, the 7, 5, 7. Then I went to 5 on the first string, and then 8. So I have... And right there, even if you just did that, if you're not really used to stepping outside the pentatonic, all of a sudden you're going to start hearing some really fresh, colorful sounds, which should be, you know, ultimately inspiring to you, and then ultimately from there, inspire whoever's listening to you. That's kind of the key with this thing is, you know, don't get caught up in one-dimensional thinking when you're trying to get creative, whether it's chording, whether it's rhythm, whether it's, you know, soloing. But don't just, you know, choose like a scale and then tell yourself like that's all you can do. Or when you're playing within the scale, like I was talking about earlier, don't always think that you have to start on beat 1 or you always have to start on the A if you're in the key of A or whatever. Try and break out of those conventional ways of thinking and look for something a little bit interesting, okay? So we might be doing something straightforward pentatonic. And then all of a sudden we throw in something like that where maybe we walk up and back down. Or maybe we just, you know, or here's another one. Maybe we're playing normal pentatonic. And then we come down. Okay. And Brian says, I know what this song sounds like, but I can't think of it. I don't know what song you're thinking of, but if you think of it, Brian, please let us know. And I'll just let you know briefly. I'm doing a new course right now on common chord progressions and all these songs that fit in there. Not just to learn common chord progressions, which is really important, but to ear train. So when you listen to songs, you go, oh, that's what that is. I know what that is. And you play it, right? So developing your ear training and working on songwriting and just all these different things that you can do. And Brian, that's one of the big things is you hear something and go, what is that, right? But Sebastian says Slash does a bit of this concept. There's a ton of guys that do, and that's why I want you to do it as well, okay? So it's accentuating something that's a little bit different than the norm, okay? It doesn't, and the faster you do it, the problem is it loses its spice of the sound, right? If I'm going to play something fast, I've got patterns that I use for things like that. But if I'm going to shake up the Alex says Purple Haze, which is kind of true, it's very similar to that. Okay, well, let's work our way down now, okay? So we're going to add in this one. And this I just think is cool. So now what I've got is I'm going to come down the 7, 5, 7, and now we're going to head over to that 4. Right, so I have, and I got to figure out what I want to do from there. Well, I could go into, okay, but something I really like to do is if I come off, I'll go back to that 5 on the 3rd string, which is creating the 7th sound, okay, which sounds kind of cool. Now, I'll show you something else with that in just a second, but okay. Now, let's say, for instance, we were coming across here. Okay. Now, another thing I want you to think about a little bit is transitions from a 1 chord to a 4 chord to a 5 chord, for instance, if we're playing blues, right? So one thing that's really neat is when you're playing over a 1 chord, doing whatever, and then here comes the 4 chord. So you direct yourself to something to do with the 4 chord, which in this case is that D chord, right? So it might be something as simple as here's my 4. Right? So I'm going to that 4. Well, get this. This is really cool. So if I come down this sort of Dorian altered thing here, those 2 notes right there, that 4 and that 5 that I just got done playing, are actually part of a D7 chord or D9 chord, depending on how you look at it. So you could go right into, this would be a perfect little thing to do right before you're leaving the 1 chord and you're heading over to the 4 chord. So you got your 1 chord playing. Right, just going. Now here comes that 4 chord. So now I'm going to go. And right there, I'm on the D. And then back on the A again. There's a million different ways that you could use something like this. Again, my point is when you're playing and you're going to do something that's not just minor pentatonic, have some fun with it, right? I mean, and remember, it's okay. Like if I was to take this F sharp right here and I bent it up a half step, then it's becoming the 8 that I used to have. It's becoming the G that I had before, which sounds really, really, really cool. Okay, so just something to think about a little bit. Robert says, could also be used in Star Spangled Banner. Sure, you could use it all kinds of different places. Ed says, I love the way you slide to it. That's awesome. See, that's another thing, is always thinking about how to make the guitar sing, right? Make it cry. And I know that sounds really silly, but you want to make things... you know, vibrato and bending and sliding and all these things. And I know you've probably heard me say this a million times if you've been in these things with me in these sessions, but those are the kind of things that, you know, I spent many, many, many years developing my speed picking and all those kind of things. And I'm glad I did, because I love that kind of playing. But there's no substitute for great vocal-like soloing, okay? For me, the speed picking and all those kind of things are another tool, another supplement that I can use in my playing along with everything else. But it's not like, in my mind at all, it's not like I think, okay, I've got speed picking, so I don't need to do anything else because I learned how to do, you know, I can play fast. That's not true at all. It's speed picking is right here as a supplement that I can use, and right here is bending, and right here is sliding, and right here are pentatonic variations and all these different things. They're all just different stuff that I can use in my playing, okay? So think about that a little bit. Now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the next one, okay? And this one, let me make sure I'm on the right page here, is the A minor pentatonic without the 4th, okay? Let's see. Marilyn says, conversation, ask a question, then answer it. Absolutely. That's kind of the fun of being able to jam with other people too, Marilyn, is when you're playing, to be able to make up different things back and forth. Or you escalate and then de-escalate a conversation on your guitar, which is really fun to do as well. So there's so many really cool things to do. Kevin says, I get screwed up playing the G major diatonic to get his done. Sometimes it's too many notes and it doesn't sound good. Well, it's true. And the thing about having a lot of notes is no different than what we're talking about right now. Just because all the notes are available doesn't mean you always want to play them. You know, if you're going to play something where you're playing faster, you know, something like that, then that's different. But with all the notes available, you know, you still want to find ways of making something sound musical, however you can move in and out like that. Okay? So anyway, the minor pentatonic no fourth, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add in the 2, often called the 9. It's the same thing. Okay? So right now we're adding in this. So we're going 5, 7, 8. Okay? So again, it sounds a little dark right now, but okay. Then here's where it gets kind of cool. Is we're going to go right there up to the 7th fret right there, which is E. And then this is the best part for me, is creating that cool little sounding arpeggio right there. So I'm going 8, 7, 5. Right there. Okay, so try that with me. So you're playing 5, 7, 8, 7, and then 5. And then right here, we're going to do the same idea. So we're going, and then we have 7, 4, 5, 5, 8, and then, okay. And what you're going to notice about this one is you're getting more of an arpeggiation happening. Which, if you ever heard me play, I use this kind of thing all the time. So, for instance, a great thing to try here is doing the slide from 4 to 5 on the 3rd string. And then do 5. And then do another 5. And then you got your 7 and your 8. Okay. Okay. So you're creating more of an arpeggio sound without really having to know all your arpeggios. Okay. Now again, you don't have to use them all, because if you use 5, 7, and 8, you'll notice it begins to sound a bit dark, right? For a if you're playing pentatonic and certainly playing blues. You see, it begins to sound a little bit, maybe a little bit too dark, which is very Yngwie Malmsteen-ish right there. Which, if you were playing in a minor key, this would be great. You see? So if you're not just doing blues, this is a great way of being able to use pentatonic, but expand it in a way that all of a sudden sounds much more melodic than pentatonic on its own can be. Okay? If you want to keep it a little bit pentatonic, what you can do is just avoid playing 5, 7, and 8. Instead of playing all of those, you could just play. So like right there, what I'm doing is I'm just going to use the 5 and the 7. And then I'm going to head right back into my normal pentatonic. You see? So lots of different cool little things like that we can do. But the big thing for me out of this is these 2 arpeggio ideas. Okay? And certainly if you were ever playing like minor blues, So you could do some really cool stuff with minor blues with that as well. So that's what the A minor pentatonic minus the 4 and then adding in the 2. Now, for me, the most important part of that, Nanette says, what pedal am I using? I'm not using any pedals right now. I'm just running direct into my computer. I'll show you. Using, come here, you. I'm using it's called Amplitude. It's the Amplitude 4. And that's what I'm using to make these sounds right now. There's a tone in here called back in red, which is kind of back in blackish. And then what I do is I'm just putting a tube screamer on the front of it. And I just love the sound of it. So that's what I'm using right now. So, there we go. Yeah, no worries. You are very welcome. Okay, so yeah, Brian says the 4 plus 2 minus the 4 plus 2, that's exactly what it is. And for me, the 2 is fine. The 2 is essential if you're trying to get a real minor sound. Okay, if you're looking for a bit more blues, you might play the 2 instead of the 3, or the 3 instead of the 2, instead of playing all of them together. Shar says, can you send the link so it doesn't go to Dropbox? Shar, can you click on the link? Because you should be able to just click on it and then download it from there. Brian says, so it's not minor? All of this is minor. It's just, how minor do you want to be, Brian? You know, the thing about, you know, pentatonic is minor. I mean, when I'm playing, you know, I'm playing minor pentatonic, but it still sounds like pentatonic. It still sounds bluesy. But when you play this, you're really giving it an authentic minor sound. So you have to decide how much you want. You know, if you're playing over a blues that's going, you know, you really want that sound. And if you do, then great. You know, I mean, again, it's a personal preference. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Okay, which is the A minor pentatonic. We're changing the 4 to a flatted 5, which is really just our blues note, right? But it sounds kind of strange, okay? Okay, so in this one, what we're doing here is we're going to play 5, 8, and then we're going to play, instead of playing 5, 7, we're going to play 6, 7. Okay, and then 5, 7 on the top. Okay, now when you do this, you got to remember that you're adding in the blues note, the actual physical blue note, which is a pretty ugly note over a power chord or a major chord or a minor chord, okay? So in blues, it wants to resolve by simply moving up a half step. Okay, so just making sure we all understand the blues note before we keep going with this conversation. You just take your normal minor pentatonic and you add in, and see, when you use it in passing, which is why they call it a passing note, when you use it in passing with other notes around it, it takes on a different sound entirely, as opposed to emphasizing it. So you're using it in passing. Sounds really, really cool. So there's 3 notes on the 5th string, Bill. That's right. So you're playing the normal blues scale, which is a pentatonic. Minor pentatonic is what we're using right now. With this flatted 5, that's what a blues scale really is. So I'm playing 5, 8, 5, 6, 7, and then normal 5, 7. And then on the 3rd string, you'd get 5, 7, 8, because that'd be an octave of that note. So the trick with the blues note all the way around is to try and use it in passing with other notes, okay? Or certainly at least resolve it up or down, most of the time you can resolve it upward. And it sounds really, really cool. Okay. What this scale is saying, okay, let's do this, but let's actually pull out this note. So we're not going to have that note in there. Okay. So it's forcing a bit more of this bizarreness of the flat 5 because you got to go to it right away. Brian says more sassy. Yeah, I would certainly say whether you call it sassy or spicy or something, but there's definitely something that because you're forcing it to have to utilize that flat 5. You get a really cool. You see, you're pushing that flat 5. Now, if I was playing, again, I think the bigger picture here you have to remember, everybody, is the goal is to try and accentuate that flat 5 without emphasizing it, right? You don't want, because then it's becoming something else. Now, that doesn't mean it's becoming something bad. Flat 5 is used in hard rock and metal all over the place for different kinds of things. That's why you always have to use your ear and you have to think about the situation that you're in. Okay. Use all the talents that you have. Use all the talents that you have, but cater them to the situation that you're in, right? I always use this story. It was funny, you know, for many years here in Fargo, I would teach tons and tons and tons of guitar students. And a lot of the jazz teachers would send their guitar students to me if they needed a bit of fuel in their playing. And one of the reasons why they would send them to me a lot is because in jazz, like oftentimes you'd get these players that really just know minor pentatonic, and every time they'd play jazz, they'd solo minor pentatonic over everything like a blues player does. Jazz doesn't really work that way. Jazz does something completely different. And so the reason I'm telling you that is just you want to always think about the situation you're in and then optimize that situation with your talents, your abilities, but still paying homage to it. If it's a blues tune, let's do some things that are cool blues. We don't have to be authentic about it. We can do whatever we want. But we're still playing a blues song. So I'm not going to, you know, throw in just gobs and gobs of metal licks over the top of it because it's going to sound out of place. And half the fun for us as guitar players is we have all of these different worlds that we can live in. We can play major stuff. We can play minor stuff. We can play blues and rock and jazz and country and acoustic and all kinds of different things. So we never have to get bored. We can constantly be trying different things. This in particular, it just sounds really cool. Where I would play it in a nice slow way. You know, I just love that sound. And the other thing that I think is really cool is the second half of this, which is the 5-8-5-8-5-8. It's like big steps, which sounds really cool, but for a different reason, right? So now I've got 5-8-5-8-5-8. You see? So all of a sudden that to me would become like my patterns where I could have some fun getting crazy. Because it's just a shape. It's just 5-8-5-8-5-8. And it's kind of fun to play. You see? So this sharp 5 is kind of a really neat thing to explore when you're playing. And again, don't feel like if you start playing it, you can't use the 4, right? You can still go back and drop into that 4 or drop into a 6. See how I'm just kind of moving, and I'm sorry if I'm playing a little fast. I'm not trying to go too fast here, but you can move in and out of all of these ideas as you play. Right, you might just start off with something normal pentatonic, then go to that Dorian idea. I'm going to go to that sharp 5. There's that Dorian again. And then maybe I go into a, and that was that adding the 6th or the 9th in. And again, guys, I am not trying to go too fast. I'm just trying to show you how you can kind of move in and out of these things. And that's the ultimate goal, is to not think, okay, well, I'm in this scale, so that's all I get. That's all I get. I don't get to do anything else. No, you get to do all kinds of things. And that's why if you like to listen to rock music, you know, for me, one of the best places you could ever go to learn how to play rock and roll is AC/DC. I mean, I cut my teeth on AC/DC when I was a kid, learning how to play that stuff. And AC/DC to me is so great, not just because I like them, but because they have riffs and lots of fun things to do with your fingers as you're playing guitar. And you get to study how major and minor pentatonic are being used together in a very skillful sense. But yet it's not like Led Zeppelin, where Led Zeppelin is, no, don't get me wrong, I love Led Zeppelin too, but that's all over the place. I mean, you might have a song that's more country-like, and then all of a sudden you've got one that's very bluesy, and then you've got one that's more rock. AC/DC, it's all kind of in the same realm. So they're all kind of the same. And you see a lot of these things that I'm talking about in Angus's playing. Now, again, there's a million players that do this. It's not just Angus Young. I'm just saying, if you were a teacher and you wanted to educate someone on what rock and roll is, you know, you learn, you know, all those songs. You know, all those kind of songs. Like at the beginning, I was playing. Like Riff Raff, you know, all these really fun songs to play. And then you go ahead and start jamming. Start using some of these things that we're talking about. Okay? Now, as you watch me play, especially if you hang out with me long enough, you're going to start learning a lot of the isms that I tend to do, which are the same things that most players do. Right now, we're talking about rock and roll and blues. You know, we're not having a metal conversation. And although someday I would like to have it, who out there, give me a yes or a no if you listen to metal. I'm going to take a poll with you guys right now. I want to know who listens to metal. Is there more of you or less of you that listen to metal? Yes, yes. I'm going to wait. No. Yes, 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 yes. Yes. Don't vote twice, cheater. Yes. Metal, no. Kiss Army, yes. No, yes. Little, no, no, no. Yeah, see, okay, so you understand why our conversation isn't just metal driven. It's more rock and roll, and then you can combine elements to make it more metal as you keep going. So for those metal people out there, okay, one thing that you can do with your pentatonic is take this idea that we're doing right now that we just went over, use that exact same idea, but add in this. And what I'm doing right there is adding in what we call the harmonic minors. That's what we're adding in, is the raised 7. So what I'm doing is playing, just going to show you this. Okay, if you think about what we just did when we went 4, 5, 5, 5, 7, 8. Okay, let's do that. But what we're going to do is we're going to start on top, and we're going to go 8, 7, 5, 4. So let's do that. Let's go 8, 7, 5, 4, and then back to the 5. And then 5, 5, 4. So it sounds like this. Which is pretty cool. And all you're doing there is doing that same idea that we just had, where you're adding in that 4th. You're taking the 2nd out. Or excuse me, you're taking out the 4th, you're adding in the 2nd. Okay? But you're also adding in this flats, or this 7 here. Okay. Robert, the only diagrams I'm giving you right now are the ones that you're downloading. When I play, I'm just improvising. I'm just going off my head by what I'm seeing you guys talk about, and I'm just hanging out with you. So I don't have all of this prepped before I go, and just in case we decide we want to talk about something different, I'm all about that too. But anyway, hopefully that makes sense to you guys, okay? So there's 3 different things that you can utilize in your playing. Now we got about 10 minutes, and then I got to get going. I have to go to a choir concert for my daughter tonight, but which starts at 7 o'clock. So I got about 10 minutes to get there. Brian says, I'll tab it. Thank you, Brian. That's awesome. Thank you. I appreciate that, buddy. Todd says, classic metal. I am a huge classic metal fan. I'm a huge music fan. I listen to all kinds of different things. So let's see. So anyway, all right, guys, do you have any questions? We got about 10 minutes. I want to see if I might be able to help you out a little bit with something that you're going through on your side, whether it's playing or performing or Brian says he wants my Chapman stick. Someday you got to make a video of that, Brian. Make a video of your Chapman stick and put it out for everybody to see. Any questions about anything? Does anybody have any questions? Besides what kind of hair care products I use or something like that. Okay? Any questions? I'll help you with whatever it comes to that I can, okay? Let's see here. Kevin says, need help learning to tell what key a song is in besides guessing what the root is. I'm telling you, Kevin, and I'm not trying to sell you on anything, but that course that I'm working on right now is exactly what that's about. Figuring out the key that it's in, the chord progressions, the scale that it comes from, what I call non-key chords, all kinds of different things like that. Let's see here. Shar says, will you please post the link again? Hold on a second. I sure can. There you go. Should be up. Richard says, down picking, I always hit my index finger. You saying, Richard, that when you play like this, you hit this finger? And if you are, so do I. My fingernail bed on this side of my finger doesn't grow anymore. It's completely damaged. So the only side that grows, there's a little bit that grows on this side of my finger. When I play, I'm always hitting this side of my finger. As a matter of fact, when I play on stage, when I get done at night, usually this side of my finger is black from the strings, and sometimes it's even bleeding. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm just saying that I'm always hitting that finger. Yeah, so I'm always hitting that thing. Let's see here. Doug says how to figure out harmony parts. That's another course that I had thought about doing too. I know I did could have sworn there was a club lesson on harmony, Doug. Basically with harmony, Doug, what you're doing is you're dealing with playing 3 notes. You're dealing with the root, the third, and the fifth, and you're harmonizing from there. So for instance, let's say I wanted to create something where I'm in the key of G major. You got to know your scales to be able to do this effectively. So if I just took my major scale, and let's say I just started on G, and I made something up. That's all it was. Well, if I go up 3 notes from there, 1, 2, 3, and I do the same thing, and I put those together, it's going to create a harmony. And if I go up 3 more from that one and do the same thing, which now I can't do them all at the same time, but that's how harmonies are created. So if you go back to, for instance, Judas Priest or Iron Maiden or any of those bands that are Thin Lizzy, that are iconic harmony style bands, they're always playing thirds. So, which means that whatever note you're playing, whatever you create on the guitar, you're going to go up 3 notes from that, and then you're going to play the same. And what I mean by the same is if you jump over a note on the first pattern that you created, you would jump over a note on the second pattern. If it's sequential, this one's going to be sequential too. And you can play it at different spots and stuff, but that's the way harmony is created. Louis or Lewis says, I would like to know how to make my chords faster. The best way to make your chords faster is practice a technique called bouncing, and you can find that on YouTube as well. But bouncing is just making a chord and picking it up and holding it and then setting it back down. It's muscle memory. That's what you're looking for, okay, is being able to make a chord over and over again and never make a mistake. Always put it in the same spot, okay? Now, real quick, the big thing here is don't like force yourself not to look at your guitar. I've always hated when people do that. Look at your guitar as much as you need to when you're learning how to play these things. Your eyes need to be able to make a contact, a visual contact with what you're doing. And the feel of your arm and everything that's happening here, you want to become aware of, so eventually you don't have to look at it. But to stop looking at your guitar in step one is silly. That will happen on its own, just like, you know, toddlers learn how to walk, they stare at their feet, they run into a wall. After a while, they stop staring at their feet. It's the same thing. So you bounce. And then what you do is you start learning how to bounce back and forth. So you start bouncing combinations of chords back and forth. So don't worry about strumming and playing songs. Just bounce, you know, whatever chords you're trying to learn how to do, bounce that chord over and over and over. And it doesn't have to be super, you know, you're not trying to do it super fast. It's just training yourself to lift and hold and then set it down. Lift and hold. Because if this is what I used to do with my students, is have them quiz. I'd say, at the count of 3, I want you to make a C chord as fast as possible. And if you can make it faster than me, I'll buy you a candy bar. And never lost. Thank goodness. Be buying everybody candy bars all the time. But the point was, what you do is, if you think about it, if your hand is here and you want to make a chord, whatever it is, bar chord, power chord, doesn't matter. You have to lift, and now you make the chord. You don't wait till you get to the guitar to make the chord, because you're going to be late every time. You have to make the chord now and then set it down. So if you want G, G is already made. You just set it down. Or a bar chord, you've already made it. You just set it down. So that's the biggest way to make your chords faster. Okay? Let's see. Cool. Robert says, I love classic rock and classic country. So do I, as well as Southern country. Yeah, so do I. Cool. Let's see. Well, I think I got... Jeremy says, can you talk a little bit about those wild endings where bands like Def Leppard use and end songs where flurries of descending type scales? Basically, all you're doing is you're visualizing whatever you have and playing as fast as you can, making a bunch of noise. It's just chaos. And you're not really worried about whether all the notes fit in a particular key. You can play chromatics, you know, whatever to try and fill space. It really is just chaos. Okay? Bill says, when you change the scale, do you change the chord so harmony is the same? Well, I'm not sure what you mean, Bill, by when you change the scale. Okay, when you're talking about harmony, you're usually talking about being in a key, right? And that key is the scale. Don't think, because I don't know if you're saying scale as in position on the guitar. So again, always try and start. Don't think positions on the guitar. Think about the key that you're in. Think about the scale you're using. So if you're using G major, for instance, and your melody goes G, A, B, so G, A, B, A, G, right? Do, 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 do. That's what you're doing. Well, then your harmony would be start on the note B, G, A, B. That's the third note. And it would go B, C, D, C, B. Wherever you're going to play it. Positionally, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do. But you want to understand the theory to a certain degree first, because, like, I don't know if I'm talking about what you want, Bill, but the big mistake when it comes to scales and modes and theory and all these things is guitar players get wrapped up in positions. Am I at the 3rd fret or I'm at the 7th fret? And that's where people get really confused, is positions are just a guitar thing. Like saxophone players don't have a position. Well, they kind of do, but not like we do. You know, like a piano is linear. It moves this way. So they're not thinking about moving up here versus playing down here. It's all one thing. And that's why for me, when I try and teach, I try and get people to understand, to learn how to think about your fretboard that way. You know, if you're going to be in G major right here, that first position, we call it, you could do anything you want in that first position. You can create modes and harmony and all sorts of things and never leave this position. You know, you're not obligated to have to move up to do different things. So I know that might be a little confusing, but Greg says, what DAW software am I using? Right now I am using Cubase Studio. That's what I'm using. Cubase Home. That's the one I've decided on lately, is Cubase Home Studio. I like it a lot. It's very easy to use, very efficient for resources. Should I stay with alternate picking? Well, yeah. If you're learning how to alternate pick, it's huge. Very, very, very important alternate pick. Okay. When do you play wide open versus a planned pattern? Not sure what you mean by wide open versus a planned pattern, unless you mean spread fingering versus like a box. And the truth is that I never play box. I always play spread fingering. I learned how to play boxes first, and they confused the daylights out of me trying to connect them and trying to see them fast. And once I learned how to play spread fingering, which is 3 notes per string, if that's what you're talking about, it made a night and day difference in my playing, in my speed, in my visualization, in my relating my theory. The layout was there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I could see them sitting there. And it was way easier to find a third or a seventh or whatever it was I was looking for. So for me, it made a night and day difference. Robert says, I'm having a huge issue while strumming, specifically on the upbeat. I'm really digging into the strings. Remember, the key is think about your, if this helps you, think about your pick as a pendulum, right? So when you're strumming the strings, your down strum is coming at this angle and your up strum is coming at this angle, right? Where if you come across this way and then you try and do this, you're going to get stuck on those strings. Another thing you might want to try, Robert, is trying a thinner string, or excuse me, I'm sorry, I did not mean that. A thinner guitar pick, a pick that bends more. But think about it when you strum, you know, you shouldn't be coming across like this and then back up like this because you're going to get stuck. Think of it as a pendulum as you play. Stay really loose in the wrist so the pick is able to move like this across those strings. And if you need a little assistance, if you go to a lighter string, or sorry, a lighter pick, that pick will bend when it hits those strings and give you some more space too. Guys, I'm so sorry I can't get to everybody, but I got to get going. I got to get over to my my daughter's thing. But we'll have another one next month, and I'll try and get to everybody. Have a wonderful evening or afternoon or whatever time it is. Okay, keep practicing and stay positive and keep that smile on your face. Don't let anybody take this stuff away from you. You can do this. Okay, just got to stay with it. So everybody, take care. God bless. Have a wonderful evening. Okay, and keep practicing. Let me know how things are going. Okay, you're welcome to I try and get on the Guitar Zoom community as much as I possibly can and talk to people, but I love when you post videos and you're having conversations about stuff. You just got to keep it going, all right? So take care, everybody.